$3.7 trillion is enough to buy everything in the United States except the land. Every house, ship, truck, car, skyscraper, amusement park, baby's diaper, everything that isn't the land in the United States could be purchased for what we spent on the Cold War, and the net result is that we are much less secure. It's undemonstrated. And for this to be the pinnacle
Would you want to demonstrate it, Carl? Would you want a war so that you could disprove your theories?
This is very bad thinking.
I wouldn't.
That the burden of proof is on, let's have a war and check it out.
The Earth as a little sphere rotating and the moon going around it ought to be extremely powerful, I think.
What more than a few people are saying is that we have an opportunity here to demonstrate out loud in the final 2 years of the Reagan presidency keen interest in arms control by joining the Soviets in a moratorium. It would not jeopardize the United States.
What you are trying to do, Phil, is exactly the opposite of what you said a minute ago. What you are trying to do is to give up our technological lead. You are absolutely right. We are technologically ahead. We might as well go for the things we do best. Yeah. We do technology best, and if you stop testing, you're giving up your technological lead.
What does a technological lead mean here? If we can destroy the Soviet Union 10 or 20 times over, does a technological lead mean that we can reach the point where we can destroy them 50 or 100 times over, and they can only destroy us 20 or 30 times over? Then we're ahead? What kind of thinking is this? Einstein, in 1945, after the Hiroshima bomb, said that the advent of nuclear weapons has changed everything except our way of thinking. And thus, he said, we drift to unparalleled catastrophe. Yeah. The changing of our way of thinking is the central point here. If we consider nuclear weapons as just same old kinds of weapons, and the more we have, the better off we are, then we are in deep trouble.
You've got another problem.
We have too many weapons.
You have another problem.
I agree with that.
We can't afford not to have nuclear weapons. I heard the Defense Secretary say that himself. In so many words.
The Defense Secretary can't afford not to have nuclear weapons. The rest
nuclear deterrence is cheaper. So we have ourselves now in a situation with the nuclear genie out of the bottle where we can't afford to put it back because the American taxpayer would not be able to sustain the pain it would take to develop equivalents of conventional weaponry. We don't have the tanks, we don't have the armored vehicles, we don't have the ground.
Wait. This used to be called more bang for the buck. It was the argument that we could take U.S. troops out of Western Europe after the end of the Second World War, when the U.S. Was tired, for good reasons, of the war, and the Soviets had 300 standing divisions. There had to be something, we thought, to prevent a Soviet invasion of Western Europe. Nuclear weapons were considered the answer. Politically, economically, as you say, desirable. And it is a kind of genie. It is a kind of devil's bargain, because now, by slow steps, accepted by administrations of both stripes and by both the Soviets and the Americans, we have reached the point where we have imperiled our nation and our species and our planet. And it is essential to step back. Now, how do you step back without relying on nuclear weapons? There are many ways to do it. One is the idea of a minimum deterrence. A nuclear arsenal which is invulnerable to attack from the other side, but which is sufficiently small.
How many? How many?
Well, people have a range of estimates on this. The president in Reykjavik thought 0 was a good idea.
And everybody in Europe went crazy.
As did Mr. Gorbachev. But people who have actually thought of this issue...
In other words, small clusters of nuclear Minutemen...
Something like 1,000 nuclear warheads on both sides. I consider that too large a number. But something like 1,000 is thought by a number of arms control advocates to be plenty for deterrence. And if the worst happens and nuclear war does break out, then the worst doesn't happen in terms of the consequences.
Wouldn't that be wonderful, though?
That's what we're trying to do in Geneva.
You're just talking about it. You guys...
Listen, it is so easy, Carl, to knock everything. You know,
it's very easy to knock this administration. I agree.
This administration... This administration has done nothing.
No, come on.
It's embarrassing.
Come on. We have done a lot. Let me just tell you. May I? He is not knocking the administration. He is knocking his made-up arguments about the administration.
Well, tell us what the administration has done.
Let me tell you exactly what the administration has done.
Which arms control agreements have you negotiated?
Exactly. Let me tell you. When this president came in, he said arms control in the past has not been successful. Why not? because it had allowed a buildup and buildup and buildup of nuclear weapons. We are going to get the Soviets in a position where we start negotiating on... Are you going to listen, or are you going to do your research right here?
Go ahead. I'm just,
you want to do your research right
I'm
here.
just pulling out the facts, Ken. I can hear what you're saying also.
If you were going to do your research right here, you know, we'll wait.
Go ahead.
I've already
Make your
done
point.
the research.
Okay.
I'm just waiting for an opportunity to tell you what it is.
All right. My point is...
Yes. To those who say this administration has been...
I'm trying to tell you. To those who say that this administration has done nothing, we are now discussing with the Soviets in Geneva deep reductions on nuclear weapons, the kind that Carl Sagan and others thought was inconceivable 4 and 5 and 6 years ago.
Right.
We have succeeded where other administrations have failed in getting the Soviets to acknowledge that there has to be deep reductions on nuclear
Fine.
weapons.
Now, let me just understand this administration's... what is Campbellman's marching order here?
Campbellman's marching order is to try to eliminate...
50% reduction in
for
ballistic
strategic...
missiles.
for
Those that
strategic.
go out of space.
That's right.
We're going to leave the
big ones.
air-breathing medium size for just a second. 50% reduction in ballistic missiles on both sides.
That's right.
This administration
That's a wallop. That's
it's a lot. I mean, wouldn't that be
Tremendous.
something
It'd
if
be
you got
terrific.
that?
Be terrific. Eliminate entirely Euro missiles, the INF or intermediate range missiles. Eliminate them from any place
Do you
on
expect
Earth.
the Soviets to make any kind of compromise on the issue of SDI testing?
I do.
So you would argue then at this moment, this administration appears to be ready to strike in a dramatic headline way in Geneva that will make even Carl Sagan happy.
Nothing will make Carl Sagan happy. Nothing will make Carl Sagan happy.
I don't.
Okay,
Well,
he likes to complain about this administration.
I don't in the least
think
like to complain.
That's clear.
I
He
would
makes
be
up
very
arguments.
happy to be proud of this administration. It would make me
Say
feel
a nice
wonderful.
thing about it then.
You got to do a nice thing first.
Okay.
And I mean, it's very interesting, the byplay between Phil and Ken. Phil says, tell us what you've done, and Ken says, here's what we're talking about. You haven't done anything. You only talk. And the actual
That's not true.
Please give me a chance
Sure.
to do some business here.
All right.
And also, this audience wants in this. It's their kids we're talking about. We'll be back in just a moment.
By the mid-1980s, the world had over 60,000 nuclear warheads. That was not safety. That was shared suicide managed by governments, machines, and human error. In 1983, one Soviet officer judged a missile warning to be false and helped avoid disaster. Science keeps showing the same thing. Even limited nuclear war can damage climate, crops, and food supply. The rational position is risk reduction. War worship fails even its own scripture. All who draw the sword will die by the sword.
Hi, I'm glad you waited. Go ahead.
Yes, I am totally against nuclear testing.
Yeah.
The weapons we have now, conventional weapons, are so that you can maim and injure people. Look at the Middle East, for life, mental scars on your children and everything else.
Yeah.
We do not need these.
So let's get rid of all of them.
Yeah, let's get rid of all of them.
All right.
Slowly phase them out.
But then some guy with a message from God is going to bring one in a shoebox.
Okay, what happens to these Middle Eastern countries that are testing nuclear weapons? We can't be assured that they're not going to trigger something off. So if
Yeah.
somebody doesn't get their hands on a little plutonium,
Yeah.
turns around, makes himself an A-bomb, and holds the whole country hostage?
I'm glad you called. Hi, go ahead.
Hi. I'm calling because I totally support the nuclear arms testing, and although we don't want the war, what are our alternatives? We need something more than just strong words to back up what we say.
Yeah, what is it that you fear most? What will happen? What will happen if we don't have a nuclear deterrence?
Well, what I want, I think we need some more trust in the people that we have elected. We've elected these people. We have to put our trust in
we
them.
have to trust them.
Some testing.
Yeah. And if they didn't know what they were doing, they wouldn't be in Washington. I'm glad you waited. Go ahead.
Hi. I want to know how far ahead are we, this is Carl Sagan, how far ahead are we compared with the Russians in nuclear testing?
How far ahead are we?
Yes.
200 tests.
200. Oh, you mean in terms of the scorecard for testing? You're saying we have 200 tests more than they do?
If that's the question.
Yeah. Let's see what wisdom we have out here. Yes, ma'am.
I'm really concerned about low-level radiation, having been on a panel in eastern Connecticut around a power plant, and we find that it takes 20 years for things to show up. And I'm worried about the people that live around these areas, having a son and daughter in New Mexico.
Yeah, the fact is that we do all of our nuclear testing underground. We make sure that there's no radiation that leaks out, and on that score we've been very successful all these years.
As Dr. Edelman had said, I'd like to ask Professor Sagan if the Strategic Defense Initiative wasn't nuclear-driven, would he be opposed to it?
Yes.
Because?
Because SDI will not deter a Soviet attack, because the Soviets have at the present time 10,000 nuclear warheads, and even a system which is 90% effective will let through enough Soviet warheads to utterly destroy the United States. Beyond that, the Soviets can overwhelm it, they can underfly it, they can outfox it. It's also ruinously expensive, $1 to $2 trillion. $2 trillion is the entire national debt. Plus, there's a very good likelihood that Star Wars increases, not decreases, the chance of nuclear war. Except for that, it's a great idea.
Can you imagine what we would do if the Soviets proposed for themselves an SDI?
Which would effectively disarm the United States.
We would be hysterical.
That's exactly what the Soviets have been doing for a good number of years. They've been researching strategic defense and trying...
I've heard that. For 17 years it is the claim of the defense sector.
But Phil, they have a deployed strategic defense system today around Moscow. Let me just say...
Permitted by treaty, the United States has also that option, and we chose not to do it because those defenses are so ineffective.
Let me make one comment. Carl Sagan talks about how strategic defense is just a bad idea. Let me say that years ago, we had the saying that some things are so silly that only an intellectual could have thought of them. I think to leave this country vulnerable to a nuclear attack, not to research at all strategic defense, to say the greater our vulnerability, the greater our safety, is one of those things that's so silly only an intellectual could have thought of it.
But what's so silly about this? An agreement banning outer space for this kind of technology will do more to enhance the reputation of the United States of America in the world community than all the wizardry and the technology put together. It gives us an opportunity to say we join the other superpower in making outer space inviolate.
We did that, Phil, we did that 15 years ago. We have an outer space treaty banning weapons of mass destruction in outer space.
And you're convinced you can test SDI technology without violating that treaty?
Right you are.
Not the bomb-driven X-ray laser. That would be a clear violation of the treaty.
Yes.
I have to say something. You made me laugh. You really did. Saying you have to test the nuclear weapons to make sure that they're safe. I mean, okay, we test them, and then something happens, something goes wrong. Oh, gee, sorry about those 100 million people that died. I mean, you just can't test something like this. I think Reagan and Gorbachev got to get their act together and say, listen, we have to lower this. So they're playing with toys back and forth. I have more toys than you, so we have to make more.
Yeah.
What's to say if you do? Yeah. Dr. Edelman, if you do say that testing is now fine, no one's getting hurt, fine. What's to say if we test this one, and why not go a little further? Next time, test the next one. And then if that's safe, why not test the next one a little further? When do you stop? When do you want to stop testing?
Well, that's a very good question, Phil. Let me answer that. We want to stop testing when we get down so that we do not need nuclear weapons anymore. Simple as that.
Well, what has to happen?
That should be our priority.
Why not now enter
And that should be our priority.
Why not now enter it?
Okay, because, as I explained before, you do not want to do anything that increases the risk of war. We have gone, and Europe has gone through 2 world wars the first half of this century. That is a terrible, terrible...
Do you see it in the future? Do you see it a year from now, 2 years from now? No way to tell?
What
will tell? Testing more will tell?
I'll tell you what will tell. When the Soviets get serious as we are in Geneva, about reducing as serious as we are.
You gotta be kidding me.
Yes, we are.
What is Reagan doing to stop these testing?
I'm telling you,
what is he doing? He's not getting anywhere with Gorbachev. He's not getting anywhere trying to stop this.
Were you here during the first half of the show, or weren't you?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then you heard, and I don't have to repeat, that what we're talking about in Geneva and negotiating about actively in Geneva is something that has defied every previous administration. What we're talking about in Geneva and actively negotiating about in Geneva is reductions of nuclear weapons. The kind of reductions that previous presidents never attempted because it was thought by the experts, Carl Sagan and people like that the Soviets would never entertain ideas like that.
It's a total misrepresentation of my point of view. I argued in the very nuclear winter paper in Foreign Affairs that you referred to before that both superpowers should get down to a very small number of nuclear weapons by the year 2000. This was a 1982 article, long before the president had done anything in the way of words. Just wanted to say...
That was after our positions in Geneva.
Take a look at what the Soviets did with this unilateral moratorium. If you want to compare what the two... If you want to be objective, compare what the two nations did. The Soviets unilaterally stopped testing. They said, we think that stopping testing is a way to stop the arms race. We invite the United States to join us in this moratorium. In 1963, when President Kennedy made a moratorium on above-ground nuclear testing and invited the Soviets to respond, the Soviets responded with their own moratorium within 1 week. Here it is, a year and a half after the Soviet moratorium. The United States has not done anything to stop testing. Compare what the two nations have done. Doesn't say that the Soviets are perfect or that they're great guys. On this issue, look at the actions, not the words.
Let me just correct myself. Carl Sagan goes on trial next week for his involvement in demonstrations at the Nevada test site, and the first nuclear test of the year will be conducted by the United States underground on February 5th. That marks the end, then, of the Soviet moratorium, and we'll be back in a moment.
Religious thinking is dangerous around nuclear power because it treats certainty as proof. Evidence does the opposite. Underground testing was sold as controlled, but U.S. records show radioactive material still reached the atmosphere after many tests. Fallout from Nevada testing carried iodine-131 into milk and across states. Christianity even praises obeying God over human authority in Acts 5:29. That mindset is terrifying when one fanatic, one leader, or one mistake can create mass death.
Yes, Phil?
Yeah.
I'm a long-distance truck driver. I've been watching you guys for 2 years, but this gentleman here from the Reagan administration, he just got me fired up like you can't believe. Wow. Now, very, very easily put, I think that he's not taking into consideration the audience. Will you just look at the people in the audience, taxpayers like me? You know, the people are pissed off. They're nowhere near as pissed off as I am, though. Now, let me just take the issue here.
Yeah.
Now,
I think you mean that you're angry or you're upset.
You better believe it, because I'm a high-paying taxer.
Yeah, in other words, what is, you think this is costing your money, this nuclear spiraling thing?
You better believe it is costing me money. You just showed in the very beginning of the program the explosion on the ground. I can see the ground shaking from television here, and you can see the vapors. Now, how do I know 25 years from now the vapors didn't drift over someplace in Arizona and hurt somebody's kids 25 years from now? How do I know? Well, tell me something. Very simply put. Why is it that the money that they're spending on arms stuff, why can't they, instead of building up the arms, why can't they build up the people in the United States? Why can't we build up the people? Why are we building up arms? They just said we got enough arms to blow up the whole world.
Okay, right? hang on a moment.
The fact is, Phil, that what we want in this country is we want peace and we want freedom. And the fact is that military might, regardless of what people would like in an ideal world, military might has basically kept us out of war these years. And that is very important. I think history shows, if I can...
I'm just indicating I want to say something afterward. What is not interrupting.
I think history shows that strength does deter aggression and that weakness is provocative. And if you're saying, well, that's sad that that's the way the world works, it is sad because you have aggressor nations around the world and you have totalitarian nations.
But you seem to believe that fewer nukes mean weakness.
No, I didn't, Phil. Were you here the first part of this half hour?
All right, you're saying you're going for a 50% cut.
We are working on it every day in Geneva with the negotiations.
Can I just pick up one point? How much money has the United States spent on the Cold War? It's an interesting question. When the Reagan administration leaves office in January '89 or earlier, the amount that will have been spent will have been $3.7 trillion. How much is $3.7 trillion? $3.7 trillion is enough to buy everything in the United States except the land. Every house, ship, truck, car, skyscraper, amusement park, baby's diaper, everything that isn't the land in the United States could be purchased for what we spent on the Cold War. And the net result is that we are much less secure now than we were when the United States was invulnerable in 1945.
How can you make us believe that the Reagan administration is going to reduce the arms when you are spending more on nuclear spending than ever? Actions speak louder than words.
Right. Let me address that point because it's an important one. The fact is, does anybody in this audience realize how much we're spending on nuclear weapons? We are spending about, of our defense budget, about 15% of the defense budget goes for nuclear weapons. When you generally ask people, they say, oh, it's half the defense budget, 3/4 of the defense budget. 85% is for non-nuclear. That's number one. Number two, Carl Sagan says, well, you have these enormous expenditures. Defense is expensive. It's expensive. We are spending less percentage of our gross national product today than Eisenhower did, than Kennedy did, than Johnson did, than Nixon did. You look at the post-war era, the Reagan administration is not at the high, it's about the same, or it's low. Now, you may think it's too much, and people may think it's too much. Okay. Some people think it's too little. The fact is, what we have to do is to have just enough defense so that the Soviets realize aggression doesn't pay.
Well, in other words, we're sending a message to the Soviets.
Don't attack. That's your message. Keep the peace. Don't attack. That's a good message.
This is the most expensive message
That's a good
in
message.
the history of communications.
And Phil, it's the most important message.
In other words, we've heard this before, too, Dr. Edelman, others from the administration. Not a whole bunch of people come in here from this administration, so we're grateful that you came. You're a brave man, I guess. How will we know they got the message?
Because they don't attack. And we keep this country at peace, and we keep our freedom alive, and we keep our friends and our allies around the world at peace. That's the standard, and that's a very good standard.
This idea that a European war has been prevented by the accession of nuclear arms is a kind of undemonstrated contention. If you look at the history of conflicts in Europe, you find that from something like 1814 to 1870, there were no big wars in Europe. That was before there were any nuclear weapons. You can't just there's a period of time, 40 years, there haven't been any wars, therefore nuclear weapons are the reason. It's undemonstrated. And for this to be the pinnacle
Would you want it demonstrated, Carl? Would you want a war so that you could disprove your theories?
This is very bad thinking. That the burden of proof is on, let's have a war and check it out. If this is the pinnacle of the administration's argument that we haven't had a war in Europe because of nuclear weapons, we have to have a much more compelling argument. You've used it 3 times, that's why I picked it up, than just that we haven't had a war.
And we'll be back in just...
Follow the money and the logic. Brookings calculated that U.S. nuclear weapons and related programs cost nearly $5.5 trillion from 1940 to 1996. CBO now projects another $817 billion for U.S. nuclear forces from 2025 to 2034. That is a taxpayer-funded fear machine. Christian authority thinking makes it worse. Romans 13 tells people rulers are established by God. Science demands evidence. Religion trains submission. On weapons that can end cities, submission is deadly.
I wanted to elaborate on Professor Sagan's point.
Don't elaborate too much.
No, I'm not elaborating too much. First of all, the basic assumption that the Russians are an aggressor nation. Secondly, the history of European wars. Before the First World War, Europe was armed to the teeth and there was a war. Before the Second World War, European powers had disarmed and there was a war. There's no proof of history that strength does deter aggression. And secondly, we've had proxy wars since the end of the Second World War. We've had the war in Korea, in Vietnam, and now in Afghanistan, which are really proxy wars between Russia and the United States. So I'd like you to address some of those points. And Professor Sagan.
Yes, I know you would, but with so little time, we have the smartest audience we've ever had in the history of our program here today.
The atomic bomb ended World War II pretty well. Why did we progress this far? And I assume we will perfect Star Wars. What is going to be next? 10 years from now? 20 years from now?
Well, that's it. There's no end. That is, the United States... The United States...
I'm for strategic war.
You're for strategic war? I'm sorry to hear it.
For strategic defense, excuse me.
Yeah, and what will you be for next?
That's just it. I want it to end. It's got to end
but it
somewhere.
doesn't end.
How
You see,
far do we
that's
go?
just the point.
So
that
Dr.
it doesn't.
What is next?
That it doesn't end. The United States and the Soviet Union have sufficient technological bases that there will be an infinite sequence of new weapons, new countermeasures, and it will never end unless we really end it.
Gentlemen, if you
unless
please. Hang on just 1 second. Yes.
This moratorium is really a hidden agenda on the part of the Soviet Union in that it's all related to the Star Wars issue. And I wish you guys had did a more thorough job of linking that issue.
Yeah.
Isn't the strategic defense important, though, in terms of being able to stop the nuclear attacks, to have some type of a defense?
Oh, sure, it's important.
And what about the Middle Eastern countries?
Yeah.
You know, when they start developing them and we don't have any defense against it, we can't deal rationally with them like you could with possibly Russia, who's more culturally
the way small countries will use their nuclear weapons when they develop them is not with ballistic missiles, which Star Wars is intended to prevent, but by carrying suitcases and motorboats and so on, which Star Wars is utterly unable to even approach.
Over here.
Sure, everyone would be happy and more peaceful if nuclear weapons were never invented, but since they are a reality, we have to deal with it and keep up with the
We
other.
have to keep up. How long do you want to
Well,
keep
it
up?
has to be under control somewhere, but we have to have
When
some.
do you think we'll be able to stop?
Well, it should be cut down. We have enough now. We should.
You think so? Yes.
I would like to know what Mr. Sagan would do if he was running the administration, how he would change things.
In the extremely unlikely circumstance,
No chance.
that I would be in that position, what I would like to do is to have a comprehensive test ban treaty, to make massive reductions in both strategic and tactical nuclear weapons, make a new beginning in using some of the money being spent both on conventional and on nuclear forces for elimination of poverty and hunger and removing educational deficiencies and making the planet self-sufficient. We are able to care for everybody on the planet if only we would reutilize our resources. Think of that $3.7 trillion and what could have been done with it.
All I wanted to say is I don't think there would be a winner in nuclear war.
You don't think what?
No one could be a winner in nuclear war.
Let me just try one here with Brother Sagan. You know, it really looks good for a Geneva breakthrough, in my opinion. This administration is looking for good press. That is to be sure. We also have information from Gary Hart, who met with Gorbachev, that a compromise on this passionately held idea of SDI from the Soviets may be at hand. Why don't you get your picture taken with Dr. Edelman and bring your considerable influence to at least a limited partnership with this administration toward that immediately achievable goal?
My sense is that this administration has made it extremely clear that they're not really for arms control. They have put the foxes in charge of the hen house.
It may be different now.
May I speak
It
as
may
one
be
of the
different.
foxes?
That's the point.
May I speak as one of the foxes?
Yes.
I think it is so easy to complain about what the administration is doing. It's so easy to blame America for everything and say what the Soviets are doing is showing us the way. I think the point is exactly the point that you got to. We need to reduce nuclear weapons. How? By reducing nuclear weapons. We need support to do that.
Judge.
My 65 years that I trust the Russians to keep the peace more than my own government.
I would like to direct my question to Mr. Carl Sagan.
Yeah.
He said to receive a nice thing, you have to give a nice thing. And before you say that, if the American didn't test their weapons, the Soviet one wouldn't. So do you think that we shouldn't test our weapons?
You'd like to see a moratorium, I think.
What I would like to see, and it's not too late, and this is why we've been arrested in Nevada, is for the United States to declare
Services
its
provided
own
and promotional
moratorium.
fees
The Soviets
paid by
will
the
then
following.
maintain their.
The fantasy is that bigger weapons make smarter policy. History says no. Korea, Vietnam, Afghanistan, Iraq, and Ukraine all show that nuclear states still fight, fund, invade, and bleed through proxy wars. Strength did not create peace. It moved the violence onto poorer countries. Religion adds the same poison. Holy books can turn violence into obedience. Deuteronomy 20 commands killing entire cities. That is not morality. That is ancient tribal war logic pretending to be divine.
Hi, we're back, and joining me is Carl Sagan, an interdisciplinary scientist on Galileo. And Carl, thanks for coming down. And I guess it's a good day for you and a good day for Galileo. We're back at the Earth, and one thing I want to ask is, it's been 2 years since Galileo has come by. What do we expect to see this the second time?
That we didn't see the first.
We didn't see the first.
Well, let's see. There's night side imaging, lightning, and maybe signs of a technical civilization on Earth. Mm-hmm. There's polar clouds and aurorae that are going to be, or are in the process of being looked at. We will have high-resolution photos of an inhabited part of the Earth. Mm-hmm. I mean, last time the highest resolution was Central Australia and Antarctica, the least populated places on the planet. Now it's in the Andes, and there's lots of interesting features there, both in the context of the biosphere, but also the idea of patches of ice, isolated glaciers, the sort of thing, along with Antarctica, that you want to develop some experience for the Galilean satellites.
Mm-hmm. The movie we just saw is an interesting one. It's kind of a rare view that you see the Earth like that, when the spacecraft is actually changing perspective and the Earth is rotating in the distance. To me, it's kind of analogous to the first Apollo images that kind of galvanized our view of the planet as a soul alone in space. And this is kind of the next generation view of that, much higher fidelity and much more realism.
It's I think it's emotionally tremendously powerful, and some of the things that will emerge along those lines later from the second Earth encounter, including the Earth as a little sphere rotating and the moon going around it, ought to be extremely powerful, I think.
Yeah, those data are going to be acquired in the next few days, and it'll take us a few weeks or a month or so to put those together into a movie, so we'll be looking forward to seeing those.
Well worth waiting for. And by the way, another picture in that same category is the Voyager 1 photo of the Earth as a point of light, as seen from beyond the orbit of Pluto. I think that also is an exquisite calibration of the fragility, vulnerability of our planet.
That's right. I know you've been thinking quite a bit about the biosphere and what we would learn from this interplanetary perspective if, for instance, we didn't live here and we flew past the Earth with Galileo. What would we really learn about the Earth? Would we know it had a biosphere? We'd know a little bit about the atmosphere. But even things like the ocean, there's some question as how we would interpret the data.
Yeah, I'm going to be talking about this at some length tomorrow afternoon in Von Karman, but let's pick up on the ocean. What sequence of arguments could an extraterrestrial use to deduce this quite astonishing fact that the Earth is mainly surface liquid water? No other object in the solar system is anything like that. So first off, you would know just from the heliocentric distance how far the Earth is from the Sun, and from the luminosity of the Sun, what the equilibrium temperature of the Earth ought to be in the absence of a greenhouse effect. Mm-hmm. And that would turn out to be 35 centigrade degrees below the freezing point of water. And it's clear from clouds that there's an atmosphere, so you would expect some greenhouse effect, and so you can see you're in the range of water. Water is cosmically extremely abundant. Then the NIMS experiment does radiometry. And so after this back-of-the-envelope calculation, you can actually measure from the thermal emission of the Earth at various latitudes the temperatures. And sure enough, the equatorial temperatures are comfortably above the freezing point. The polar temperatures are below the freezing point. There's this white solid stuff at the poles, probably the frozen form of water. There's this other stuff at intermediate latitudes, probably liquid form. Then also with NIMS, you can detect water vapor in the atmosphere. You can measure how much, and you can note that it is very close to the equilibrium vapor pressure of water vapor above a liquid. So now you have it. And then the specular reflection. If the Earth's surface were smooth, you could even get the index of refraction from the specular reflectivity. So I think it would be absolutely nailed down that we have surface oceans. And this is an example of how using a variety of sensors, you can find out a lot about a planet from flying by. One of the things that I was most interested to do is this. We've flown by some 60 worlds. We claim we haven't found life anywhere, and that is a significant result. That is, that we would have found life had it been there. But this has never been calibrated. We've never flown by the Earth with a modern interplanetary spacecraft, all instruments on, and detected life here. And so Galileo, because of this peculiar gravity assist Vega trajectory, permits us to do that. And as I'll describe tomorrow, we find life in 5 or 6 different ways, including intelligent life. And this then means that the negative results that we find elsewhere are, in fact, significant.
Well, we've seen 60 different worlds, but many of them are just very low resolution, and clearly not with a suite of instruments available to us on Galileo.
Sure, that's certainly.
But it is good to be able to know at least that we've made some effect, our biosphere, our intelligent life, that we are at least visible with a kind of spacecraft like Galileo.
Yeah, it's in a way reassuring that we're visible, but most of what's visible is not us, that is us humans. It's microbes and plants.
That's right.
And cows.
Cows because of methane gas in the atmosphere. Right.
Flatulence is detectable over interplanetary distances.
Right. So termites also account for a lot of
Yes, it's true. It's true. And rice cultivation and, and natural gas leakage and so on.
Well, in thinking last night a little bit about what's happened on the Earth in the last 2 years, basically it's interesting because the kind of things you're talking about detecting aren't the kind of things that we normally think about. I mean, we've had a major war. We've had 100 oil well fires, which blazed for several months and were put out.
Many hundred. I think it was much more than 100.
Yeah. We've had the world population increase by something like 200 million people. But it's interesting that it's all of those big things in our lives, all of our history, is really kind of pales compared to the kinds of things that Galileo is really sensitive to. The gross structures of the biosphere.
Well, and the planet itself. I mean, the Earth abides. You know, we humans come and go and briefly set foot on the stage and then exit. And but that's just very small potatoes compared to what the Earth is involved with and knows about. It's an interesting question you raise. Could any of those events that loom so large in our lives have been detected by comparison of the 1990s?
For instance, like the oil well fires.
Yeah, the oil well fires, in principle, were certainly detectable, or would have been if we had flown by. I mean, we flew by in December, but they didn't begin until mid-January.
Right.
But if we'd flown by at the right time and looked down at night, I think they would have been detectable.
When a spacecraft can detect life from space through oxygen, methane, plant pigments, and radio signals, ancient religion loses authority fast. The universe is about 13.8 billion years old. The Milky Way alone has more than 100 billion stars, and NASA has confirmed over 6,000 planets beyond our solar system. Genesis puts Earth before the sun and stars. Joshua says the sun stopped in the sky. Astronomy does not bend for old tribal stories.
Okay, very clearly, yeah. What else? In terms of the products that we're getting now, we're going to getting this moon picture and this moon Earth mosaic and the Earth zoom. We're also going to be looking quite a bit at, I guess, Australia as the focus in a zoom out from very high resolution all the way out to I guess down to a pinpoint of light eventually with Galileo. as you point out, that's an unfortunate area in terms of humankind. It's basically almost uninhabited in terms of the high-resolution areas we're going to be looking at.
Well, our high resolution, is a kilometer per pixel or something of that order. So it's not high resolution by human standards. But I mean, the original vision that I had of the Zoom movie was something like this. You start with a single human being, photographed by helicopter.
Right.
And then you back off to helicopter altitudes, then you back off to aircraft altitudes, then you pick up with Galileo and keep zooming back, absolutely continuous until you're left with, as you say, the Earth as a point of light. The reality is extremely far from that continuous zoom, but nevertheless, we'll have a data product that just has never been done before. Some fraction of such a zoom with a number of interruptions.
One interesting aspect of life on Earth here is the fact that there is very little carbon dioxide in our atmosphere compared to the carbon dioxide in Venus's atmosphere closer into the Sun and Mars further away from the Sun. Now that carbon dioxide exists, or the carbon exists here, but it's tied up in the rocks.
That's carbonates.
And most of those rocks are buried. Is there any way that one could really understand that from a remote sensing spacecraft? I mean, it's an incredible structure geologically. These kilometer-thick deposits of carbonates, which are buried under the oceans, buried in some of the rocks on land, but they're exposed in very few areas.
That would be tough. I mean, you could certainly discover, and in essence, Galileo has, that the atmosphere is 3.5 times 10 to the minus 4 mixing ratio carbon dioxide, compared to
a small amount.
Yeah, I mean, whatever it is, 0.03%. While carbon dioxide is the principal constituent of Mars and of Venus. And Venus, with a 90-bar atmosphere made mostly of CO2, it absolutely dwarfs the carbon dioxide content of the Earth. And so a reasonable question, if you came from somewhere beyond the terrestrial planets, is why this discrepancy? Or put another way, where did all the carbon dioxide in the Earth's atmosphere go? And could you detect it? There are carbonate absorption bands in the infrared, and I don't know, if you fly over the White Cliffs of Dover or something, you might find there's occasional patches which seem to be rich in carbonates. Could you deduce directly from observation the fact that tens of bars of carbon dioxide are locked up as carbonates in the Earth's sedimentary column? I don't think that would be easy, but you could perhaps do it theoretically. That is, understand the carbonate-silicate equilibrium. Used to be called the Urey equilibrium, and the presence of water and substantial weathering, and maybe deduce that. But that's very different from having direct observations of it.
Right. Right. We've also, in the intervening 2 years, had some rather major volcanic eruptions, which have affected, or made a visible effect. When you look at the sunset, you can see the dust in the atmosphere. There may be some climatic effects as well. Are any of these things possibly detected with Galileo, or can we even deduce the fact that the planet is volcanically active?
Yeah, that's a good question. The solid-state image, the imaging experiment, has a cluster of pictures over Hawaii at night. And
right now we've got a very good, healthy eruption going on.
That's right, and designed, in fact, no coincidence, to answer the very question you've posed. And it'll be interesting to see if it's detectable, and just how clear-cut, how unambiguous it is that these lights, if they show up, are in fact due to volcanism.
Are we only looking for light, or are we able to look for heat or any other signs, gaseous signatures?
I've forgotten whether NIMS is Bohr-sighted at the same time. I think probably yes. So if there were significant sulfur dioxide or something, maybe it could be detectable. But I'm only guessing. I've forgotten whether that's the case or not. But in principle, it should be possible. And I think it would be very hard to imagine a planet of the mass and radius of the Earth, as outgassed as the Earth is, without imagining there's substantial volcanism. And you would see island arcs. You would maybe some volcanoes, if you had resolution just a little bit better than a kilometer, volcanoes themselves might be detectable. I don't think it would be hard to see that this is a volcanically active planet.
One deep contrast that the Earth has that many of the other bodies that we've seen in the solar system has, there are very few craters on the surface. We have a very, very active weathering process. But there are some volcanic, some crater features. I guess there are even some in Australia. Are we going to be, is there any plans to look at some of these and understand those?
I don't think there's anything specifically targeted, but you know, Meteor Crater, Arizona is what, of the order of a kilometer across.
Yeah, they're very small structures.
That is at or below the resolution limit. There are some residual, much larger craters, but you know, you often have to struggle to find them even from aerial photography. So I think if it were a major goal, you could, of a flyby or especially an orbiter, you could probably find it, but it's not absolutely trivial to do. But apart from that, the argument would go, look, here's the moon right by the Earth in the same impact environment. Asteroids and comets that hit the moon are going to hit the Earth as well. How come the Earth is not nearly as cratered as the moon is? Never mind whether you find a few craters or not. And then, as you say, you would have to imagine that there's substantial weathering, and you'd have to try to understand what the weathering processes were. As soon as you had understood that the oceans were liquid water, it would be a very good bet that liquid water over long periods of time has a substantial effect in eroding and filling in craters.
Space science reads Earth-like evidence, not scripture. Carbon dioxide, oceans, volcanoes, and craters tell a physical story with chemistry and geology. Venus shows what a thick carbon dioxide atmosphere can do, crushing pressure and extreme heat. Earth's carbon is mostly cycled through oceans, rocks, plate tectonics, and volcanoes. The Bible's ancient sky language says the sun hurries back to rise again. Planetary science exposes that worldview as pre-scientific.
Now, I'm amazed at how effective water is at erosion. We talked about the Andes Mountains in Chile, and I observed there quite a bit. And we go down there, and it's very near the Atacama Desert, which is the driest place on Earth. And even so, it only rains there perhaps once a century in some areas. And I'm startled that when you look at the terrain is predominantly very, very clearly suffering from water erosion. I mean, even if it just rains once every century, still that's the dominant effect on the topography.
More than aeolian erosion.
Much more than any kind of wind erosions. I mean, you see some erosion structures on rocks from wind, but very, very clearly the valleys, the incised structures on the cliffs are all due to water.
So this is, you know, the great catastrophist uniformitarian debate in geology. To explain the landforms of the Earth, can you do it by the, you know, occasional drop of water, the motion of a mite over immense periods of time? Or, if you thought the Earth was only a few thousand years old, don't you have to imagine a sequence of catastrophes?
Right.
So what you're saying is one of the absolutely key debates in the history of geology.
Well, speaking of catastrophes, we've kind of gone away from catastrophism, but now we seem to be making the full circle and coming right back to it, in that some of the major delineations in geology appear to be associated with catastrophic events, mass extinctions, perhaps the impact of asteroidal material or comets on the Earth, perhaps even associated with massive areas of volcanism. Galileo has flown past an asteroid, and this is clearly something of major excitement to us, both in trying to understand what an asteroid looks like and also trying to relate that to the meteorites which fall on our surface. What did you think of the Gasper encounter, and look forward to the Ida encounter?
I thought the latest data processing by Joe Vaverka of Cornell and his colleagues is really spectacular. These odd-shaped, lumpy, battered objects in the main asteroid belt, and also the Earth-crossing family of asteroids. For the first time, we're getting to know them, and look forward to seeing Ida on our way to Jupiter. You know, in retrospect, the idea that Phobos and Deimos, the two moons of Mars that we were able to photograph close up here at JPL for the first time, in 1971 with Mariner 9, that they are captured asteroids. At least the general appearance of Gaspra and the general appearance of Phobos, you could imagine them very well as neighbors or members of the same family.
Now that's a problem, though, isn't it? In capturing an asteroid like that without you've got to release a lot of, similar to Galileo's going to Jupiter, and we've got to fire engines to get into orbit.
Absolutely.
To capture an asteroid.
The mechanism of capture is tough, but the body looks like an asteroid. I don't claim that it should carry enormous weight, but we're getting to know this new category of object, of which there are immense numbers in the solar system, and so NASA now has another category of objects that have been observed close up for the first time in this preliminary reconnaissance of the solar system that's been going on at this institution for the last 30 years.
Yeah, I'm amazed that there are whole classes of asteroids, and they're based on color and physical properties, and there are a whole class of meteorites that fall to the ground, the iron ones, the stony ones, and mixtures of the two. And I guess lately, over the past few years, by cataloging and characterizing these kinds of sets, they seem to be falling into patterns, and maybe what we have on the ground are samples of some of these asteroids.
I think it's very likely, and not just the asteroids, but the Moon and Mars as well. Much rarer, for obvious reasons, hard to have an impact on those bodies, which splays out debris, which encounters the Earth, which falls on the Earth, and which is actually found. But even that is possible. On the other hand, there are some meteorites that don't seem to have any obvious asteroid that they come from, and some asteroids that seem not to be sampled in the meteorite population. And that might very well be one of various kinds of selection effects, including it's very hard to get samples from this family of asteroids to the Earth. So there's certainly a lot of work to be done there.
What's the current thinking on the origin of the asteroids now? Is there some failed planet on the way out to Jupiter that didn't make it? It's not a large amount of mass compared to an Earth mass.
No, it's quite right. Even allowing for huge numbers of small guys who we haven't seen. Classically, going back to the 19th century, there's two views. One is a remnant of the worldlets which formed the planets, which were prevented from forming by the presence of nearby Jupiter, and the other, much more difficult to justify, but
catastrophism.
Much more interesting, is that it was a world that was somehow blown up. Present opinion is much more strongly the former than the latter.
Even though some of the meteoric material appears to be coming from a very, very large parent body. I mean, we get pieces that look like cores, pieces that look like mantles, and pieces that look like crusts.
So there's no question there are collisions going on in the asteroid belt, and pieces are torn off and intercept the Earth, but that doesn't mean that the asteroids themselves come from a larger lunar-sized object that somehow got destroyed. But I think it's fair to say that nobody's 100% sure how the asteroid belt formed and why there's only one asteroid belt.
Let's look forward a little bit to the Jupiter encounter. Jupiter is by far one of the most spectacular places I have ever imagined, much less actually physically seen. It's reality. We've got worlds like Io, which I think even tax the imaginations of science fiction authors. Here's a place that geology changes in the time frame of weather on our planet. What do you look forward to in the encounter?
The first thing I look forward to is the probe, because this is something which is truly qualitatively new, unique. For the first time, in situ measurements in the atmosphere of a Jovian planet as the probe continues to go down, including chemistry. The colors of Jupiter, which are wildly exaggerated in color-enhanced pictures, but nevertheless are really there, are due to something, some molecule called a chromophore. We call it that because we don't know what it is. What molecules are doing it? We don't know. And the organic chemistry, which organics are one of several possibilities, sulfur compounds, phosphorus compounds are the other two categories. But organic chemistry is certainly happening on Jupiter, and here we will have, including at depth down towards the water clouds, some direct information, and not just chemistry, but lots of other data. That's tremendously exciting, and that is a part of the mission that is not at all degraded by the possibility that we will only have the low-gain antenna to deal with.
All of that data will be stored on the spacecraft, and all of it sent back to the Earth.
That's right. So there's no terrible downsizing of mission design for the entry probe, as there is for NIMS and imaging, and that is very sad. Although the argument is, well, we'll just get the best data, but there's a lot of best data that is in the original mission design. But even there, the data for Jupiter, for the magnetosphere and trapped radiation belts of Jupiter, and for the moons, and I guess for the ring, all of that is just fantastic. And that's going to be, a wonder a day, I think.
Deep time is where literal religion gets crushed. Water can carve deserts one rare storm at a time, and radiometric dating puts Earth at about 4.54 billion years, not a few thousand. Asteroids, meteorites, and crater records show a solar system built by impacts, gravity, and time. Jupiter's gravity helped stop nearby material from forming another planet. Genesis gives a human-centered story. Space gives evidence. We are late, small, and natural.
Jupiter is such a complete system with rings, with spectacularly different moons, and with an atmosphere which is almost psychedelic in its nature, the way the various colors and motions. It's going to be quite an amazing area to see, and to pick and choose which data you want to send back is going to be real.
And what's clear is, you have to give up on movies of cloud motions, and there's a lot of sad things if the
well, there's still a great deal of hope. There are things
right. If the antenna gets unfurled, that's going to be a cause for celebration.
Yes. Even still, I think the encounter is going to be rather spectacular.
No question about it. Even if we're stuck with the LGA, we're in business.
And Jupiter itself is kind of mimics the solar system in general. It's a system that probably formed together. The moons show a gradation of densities as they go out, maybe compositions, certainly geologic activity. And this too is a mystery that Voyager hinted at, and hopefully Galileo will more or less address that problem at higher resolution.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you ever on this program talked about your own observations of Beta Pictoris?
Well, no.
Well, it's time for somebody to interview you on that. I mean, that's an extremely interesting set of observations.
Well, that particular observation is kind of a hint that some of the nearby stars may also have formed planetary systems around there, and that's something maybe we'll discuss at a future time.
Okay, I just don't want you to hide your light in a bushel.
Okay, yeah, I'm not an anchor person. I'm an astronomer, so any mistakes I make can be blamed on that, and the early morning that we had to all wake up.
I don't think you made any mistakes.
Anyway, thank you very much, Carl. We really appreciate that. And finally, we'd like to just close and tell you that Galileo is now about 2 hours, 33 minutes from its closest approach with the Earth. It's at an altitude of 84,912 kilometers, 52,762 miles. It's traveling at a speed of 9.356 kilometers per second. That's a speed of 20,928 miles per hour. And finally, in closing, I'd like to give you my own personal observations of the Galileo-Earth encounter. Over the last 3 hours, we've been discussing some of the scientific results and expectations from these encounters. But however important these things may be, they really are just an hors d'oeuvre compared to the banquet of discoveries awaiting us at Jupiter in 3 years. To me, the most important contribution that Galileo will make as it looks back at the Earth for the last time is to allow us to see ourselves as we really are. Everything we normally experience, everyone who ever lived, all of our history takes place on or very near the Earth's surface. And we often refer to a global view as meaning the big picture or a worldwide view. But now Galileo reminds us that there is a larger perspective, a universal view, where our world is just one of many. In the next few weeks, you'll see the Galileo images of the Earth and Moon spinning alone against the enormity of space. the sun glinting off our oceans, and entire continents appearing like small islands. Remember that the Earth is just one tiny gear in the clockwork of the solar system, and Galileo is our emissary, now firmly off to give us that universal view, and we will share that view with anyone who will listen. This is Rich Terrell, an astronomer at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory, thanking you for watching on behalf of NASA and the Galileo Project. Stay tuned. In 15 minutes, we'll have the Galileo press conference. Thank you.
Jupiter alone ruins the childish idea that Earth is the main stage. It has rings, dozens of moons, radiation belts, storms, and chemistry moving without human permission. Beta Pictoris goes even further. Another star with a dusty disk, exocomets, and planets forming in the same kind of physics. Religion shrinks the sky into a human-centered story. Astronomy blows that apart. The universe builds worlds by gravity, chemistry, collisions, and time. If science keeps showing us a universe this vast, this old, and this natural, why are so many people still trying to force ancient religion into it? Comment your thoughts below. Do you think religion can survive honest science? Or does science make it unnecessary? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow for more.